Some bikes were built for speed, some were built for looks, and some were built with no regard for your safety whatsoever. This isn't about beginner mistakes or bad riding habits. This is about the bikes themselves. The machines that will straight up punish you if you don't know exactly what you're doing. Too much power, not enough control, sketchy handling, or just plain poor engineering. Some of these bikes were made for pros. Others should have never been made at all. They're fast, wild, beautiful, and borderline homicidal. So if you're thinking of buying one, you better know what you're getting into, because these motorcycles, they don't forgive, they don't teach, they just kill. Number 1. Kawasaki H2, the Widowmaker Reborn. The Kawasaki H2 isn't just fast, it's terrifying. This thing isn't built for mere mortals. It's a supercharged 998cc monster that makes over 200 horsepower straight from the factory. And that's not fast for a bike. That's fast enough to rip your face off if you even think about opening the throttle too hard. Let's put it in perspective. The H2 can do 0 to 60 in under 2.5 seconds. That's superbike speed with a damn jet turbine strapped to it. And while Kawasaki did give it electronic aids like traction control, launch control, and a quick shifter, it still demands absolute precision from the rider. The danger here isn't in how it looks or sounds. It's in how deceptively easy it is to launch yourself into a guardrail. Twist the throttle a hair too much on a cold tire and you're learning how to fly. Briefly. Add that to the price tag, the insurance, and the temptation to prove something at every stoplight, and you got a machine that turns even responsible riders into crash statistics. And the worst part? It's addictive. That boost kicks in and suddenly you're not riding anymore. You're clinging on. The H2 is not a beginner bike. It's not a commuter. It's not even a weekend toy. It's a track weapon masquerading as a street bike. And if you treat it like anything less than a loaded gun, it'll end you faster than you can blink. Number 2. Suzuki TL1000R, the frame twistin' torque trap. The TL1000R was Suzuki's answer to the Ducati 996. Big V twin, fat torque curve, aggressive styling. On paper, it looked like a dream. 996cc fuel injected, built to dominate superbike racing. But in practice, this thing earned a reputation as a death machine. Why? Because it combined brutal low-end torque with a chassis that wasn't ready for it. The stock rotary rear damper was a disaster. It overheated, underperformed, and turned the rear end into a pogo stick the second you hit a bump under throttle. It made the bike unpredictable mid-corner and twitchy at lean, like trying to ride a bungee cord around a racetrack. Plenty of experienced riders have ended up in the weeds thanks to the TL's sketchy handling. And while some of that could be fixed with an aftermarket suspension, the damage was already done. The TL1000R earned its place in the Widowmaker Hall of Fame. And let's not forget the throttle response. It was snatchy, abrupt, and paired with that massive torque, it made low-speed maneuvering a game of, will it buck me off today? This wasn't some cheap beginner bike. It was a full-on race replica that forgot to be civilized. If you were good enough, the TL1000R could reward you, but if you weren't, it would bite, and bite hard. Number 3. KTM 1290 Super Duke R, the beast for a reason. KTM didn't nickname this thing the Beast as a marketing gimmick. They meant it. The 1290 Super Duke R is one of the rawest, most unhinged naked bikes ever made. 180 horsepower from a 1301cc V-twin stuffed into a frame that weighs about as much as a golden retriever. Now on paper, it's got all the right tech. Cornering ABS, traction control, wheelie control, ride modes, the whole 9 yards. But electronics can only do so much when the bike wants to tear the tarmac off the earth every time you twist a grip. What makes the Super Duke R so dangerous isn't that it's poorly built. It's the opposite. It's so capable, so responsive, so potent that it gives riders a false sense of control. You feel like a god on this thing, until the front wheel lifts at 80 miles an hour and you realize your arms are made of spaghetti. The torque hits like a freight train in every gear. Low-speed wheelies are effortless. Mid-corner throttle mistakes become high-side crashes in half a blink. This bike doesn't just test your skills, it tests your instincts. If you don't react fast enough, you're in the hospital. The Super Duke R is a phenomenal machine for track junkies and seasoned hooligans. But hand it to someone with more confidence than competence, it's like handing a grenade to a toddler. This bike doesn't just punish mistakes, it hunts them. Number 4. Yamaha RZ500, the two-stroke time bomb. The Yamaha RZ500 is a legend and a landmine. It looks like a standard 1980s sport bike, but hiding under that square headlight and boxy fairing is a 500cc two-stroke V4 engine lifted straight out of a Grand Prix nightmare. This thing revs like it's mad at you. Nothing, and I mean nothing, happens below 6,000 RPM. Then, all hell breaks loose. The power band hits like a slap to the face, and if you're not perfectly balanced and pointed in the right direction, you're either looping it or high-siding into the bushes. The handling? Not much better. It had a steel frame with all the flex of a garden hose, and weird front-end geometry that felt twitchy at speed, and brakes that were fine in theory until you needed them. And let's not forget maintenance. Two-strokes are temperamental to begin with, but a V4 two-stroke? That's a mechanical migraine. Keep it tuned, keep it alive, and maybe it won't explode mid-ride. But that's part of the danger. It lures people in with nostalgia and cool points, and they forget this isn't just an old bike, it's a barely tamed race machine from an era when safety was optional. RZ500 riders know what they're getting into, but for anyone expecting a fun vintage daily rider, this thing is a death rattle on wheels. Handle with extreme caution, or don't handle it at all. Number 5. Ducati Desmosedici RR, race bike with a license plate. If the name sounds exotic, that's because it is. The Desmosedici RR isn't just a Ducati, it's a MotoGP bike they barely watered down for the street. And that's exactly the problem. This thing has a 989cc V4 engine making over 200 horsepower, wrapped in carbon fiber and dripping with titanium. No traction control, no rider aids, just pure, unfiltered violence aimed squarely at your ego. On paper, it's one of the most desirable bikes ever built. In practice, it's a scalpel with a grudge. The throttle's twitchy, the chassis is stiff, the suspension was built for racetracks, not potholes. And unless you're flogging it at 10/10ths, it never feels settled. It's like walking a cheetah on a leash. Technically possible, but incredibly stupid unless you're a pro. And if you think you're just gonna ride it around town to flex, good luck. The ergonomics are punishing, the engine runs hot, the fuel range is laughable, and every cop in a 10-mile radius hears you coming. It's not dangerous because it's bad. It's dangerous because it's too good. Too fast, too sharp, too unforgiving for the average rider. This isn't a toy. It's a barely tamed missile with mirrors. If you're not track-trained, ultra-fit, and a little bit insane, this bike will humiliate you, or worse. Respect it, or it'll bury you in carbon fiber glory. Number 6. Buell XB12R Firebolt. Handling genius, reliability menace. On paper, the Buell XB12R is a work of mad genius. Short wheelbase, mass centralization, underslung exhaust, fuel in the frame, and a massive rim-mounted brake rotor. It looks like a superbike designed by a rebellious MIT dropout, and to be fair, it kinda was. But riding one, that's where things get dicey. The Firebolt handles like it's telepathic, until it doesn't. The bike's super short chassis gives you razor-sharp turn-in, but with such a steep rake and stiff suspension, it can go from confident to twitchy without warning. It loves corners, but if you're not 100% committed, Or you're riding on less than perfect pavement, it'll punish hesitation like a pissed off rodeo bull. And then there's the engine. Buell stuffed in a 1203cc Harley-based V-twin that makes a ton of torque, but redlines just past your morning yawn. Shakes, it shudders, and it'll buck you like a mule if you're not smooth on the throttle. Combine that with some electrical gremlins and parts scarcity, now that Buell's a ghost brand, and you've got a recipe for trouble. This is a bike that demands skill, patience, and a sense of humor, because it might be fun until the fuel pump dies, the intake gasket leaks, or the rear cylinder decides to cook itself in traffic. The Firebolt is not for casual riders. It's for maniacs who want something different and are okay with calling a tow truck every other month. Number 7. Honda CR500R, the dirt bike that hates you. If the devil himself had a motocross bike, it would be the Honda CR500R. This thing isn't just fast, it's terrifying. A 491cc two-stroke engine that hits like a sledgehammer to the spine, packed into a frame that feels like it was welded together by a lunatic on Red Bull. This bike didn't get the nickname the Bone Crusher for nothing. The CR500R doesn't have a power band, it has a power explosion. You twist the throttle, and for a split second, nothing happens. Then, all hell breaks loose, and the front wheel shoots skyward like it's trying to escape Earth's gravity. It'll throw you over the bars, loop you out, or buck you off sideways if you're not perfectly balanced. And unlike modern dirt bikes with traction control, smooth fuel injection, or suspension that forgives your mistakes, the CR500R has none of that. It's old school brutal. Carbureted, kickstart only, and with enough torque to dig its own grave if you drop the clutch too hard. This bike isn't dangerous because it's faulty. It's dangerous because it's pure. It does exactly what you ask, but it gives zero forgiveness. You mess up your body position, your throttle control, or your clutch timing, you're done. Broken ribs, shattered ankles, or a dislocated shoulder are all on the table. For motocross veterans with iron wrists and no fear, it's a thrill. For everyone else, it's a crash reel waiting to happen. Number 8. Suzuki GSX R1000 K5, the rocket with no filters. In the world of leader bikes, there are fast bikes, and then there's the K5. This thing wasn't just quick, it was feral. No rider modes, no traction control, no ABS. Just 178 horsepower, a twitchy throttle, and a frame that felt like it was built by a madman with a stopwatch and a death wish. The K5 earned a reputation for being one of the rawest superbikes ever sold to the public. It had a monstrous top end, brutal mid-range, and a chassis that was more track weapon than street bike. And without modern electronics, the only thing standing between you and a high side was your own right wrist. Riders loved it because it felt pure. No nannies, no interference, just you and the machine. But that's what also made it dangerous. One mistake, one panic grab of the throttle, and the rear would step out like it was trying to pass the front. Wet roads, cold tires, good luck. And yet, people still hunt them down today because of that reputation. It's a cult classic. But make no mistake, this isn't nostalgia talking. The K5 can still bite harder than most new bikes, and it does it with zero warning. Beautiful, brutal, and totally unforgiving. Just how some people like it. But if you think owning one will turn you into a superbike hero overnight, it won't. It'll just turn your underwear brown and your insurance rate suicidal. Handle with extreme respect. Number 9. Yamaha VMAX, the muscle cruiser that forgot about corners. The Yamaha VMAX has one job: go fast in a straight line. And oh boy, does it do that. That monstrous V4 throws down torque like it's trying to rip the earth in half. It's loud, heavy, brutal, and it'll launch you down a quarter mile faster than most sport bikes from the same era. But once you try to turn, game over. This thing handles like a refrigerator strapped to a nitrous bottle. The rake is long, the weight is north of 600 pounds wet, and the suspension is overwhelmed before you even hit the apex. Try to ride it like anything other than a drag bike, and you'll learn real fast why this machine demands a very specific riding style. It's a bike that was built around attitude, not agility. And that's fine if you're sticking to highway pulls and straight line flexing. But if you're not paying attention, the VMAX will eat you alive, especially the earlier versions, which had brakes that felt like wet toast and a chassis geometry designed before cornering was invented. The power delivery is deceptive too. That V-Boost system kicks in at higher RPMs, suddenly doubling the insanity when you thought you had it under control. And with that kind of torque on a long, heavy bike, mistakes don't end in a wobble, they end in a crash. It's a legend, no doubt, but it's also a land missile with the maneuverability of a dump truck. Respect it, or it'll turn your ride into a yard sale. Number 10. Suzuki Hayabusa Gen 1, the speed demon that outran its own limits. Back in 1999, the original Suzuki Hayabusa wasn't just fast, it was terrifyingly fast. This wasn't a bike built for balance or subtlety. It was built to dominate the top speed wars, and it did that so thoroughly that manufacturers basically had to form a gentleman's agreement just to stop the madness. The first gen Busa could hit 190 miles an hour out of the crate. That's not quick, that's physics-defying, license-evaporating, neighborhood-clearing speed. And while today's leader bikes have more electronics than a fighter jet, the original Hayabusa had, well, your right hand and a whole lot of faith. No traction control, no ABS, no wheelie mitigation. Just a massive, torquey 1300cc engine and a chassis that kinda held together at warp speed. If you grabbed too much throttle mid-corner, the rear would step out like a drift car. If you hit a bump going flat out, you better hope the tank slapper stayed mild. And yet, riders treated it like a casual sport tour. They bolted on bags, took passengers, and rode it like it wasn't trying to murder them every time they opened the throttle in second gear. The danger wasn't just the speed. It was how accessible that speed was. You didn't need to be Valentino Rossi to get into trouble. You just needed a heavy wrist and a straight road. It's an icon for sure. But for inexperienced riders, the original Hayabusa is a ticking time bomb disguised as a gentleman's express. Handle with extreme caution. Number 11. Harley-Davidson V-Rod, the muscle cruiser that'll buck you off. On paper, the V-Rod looks like Harley's smartest move. Porsche-developed engine, liquid cooling, a cruiser that can actually go. And visually, it's a head-turner. Long, low, wide rear tire, it screams, don't mess with me. But in practice, this thing is a trap, especially for riders who expect it to behave like a typical Harley. That high revving Revolution engine doesn't deliver torque down low like a traditional big twin. So riders coming from a Softail or a Dyna twist the throttle expecting a lurch and instead get nothing until they hit 5,000 RPM and suddenly the thing takes off like a damn rocket. That mismatch in power delivery has surprised more than a few riders straight into curbs, ditches, and guardrails. And then there's the handling, or lack of it. It's heavy, the rake is long, and that giant 240mm rear tire, it fights every lane. So now you got a bike that accelerates like a sport bike but turns like a drunk cruise ship, and a braking setup that's working overtime trying to haul it down. Plenty of experienced riders love the V-Rod. Too many people buy it just for the looks, with no idea what kind of beast they're getting into. And when it bites back, it doesn't nibble. Number 12. Yamaha YZF R1, 2004 to 2006, the Widowmaker in disguise. The mid-2000s R1 doesn't look like a death machine. In fact, probably the best-looking sport bike of that era. Sleek lines, undertail exhaust, and that iconic face. But don't let the showroom glamour fool you. This thing was a cold-blooded killer with a twist grip for a trigger. What made it dangerous wasn't just the power. It was how that power came on. Yamaha crammed 180 horses into a chassis that was barely ready for it. The throttle was twitchy, the power band was unforgiving, and the chassis felt like it was always one step behind the engine. It didn't help that the fueling was abrupt and the rear end felt light under hard acceleration, especially mid-corner. Add that to the braking system, which was powerful but not exactly forgiving. Grab too much lever in a panic and you were risking a high side. And let's not forget the traction control didn't exist yet. No ABS, no rider modes, just your right wrist, a prayer, and whatever guardian angel you hadn't pissed off that week. This was a bike for gods, but sold to mortals. Plenty of riders thought they were stepping up to the R1 because they'd outgrown their 600. But what they got was a machine that demanded complete respect, punished hesitation, and didn't care if you were ready. One mistake and it'd launch you to the moon or bury you in a ditch. Not every bike on this list is evil. Some are legends, some are icons, but all of them share one thing. They don't forgive stupidity. If you treat these bikes with the respect they demand, they can be thrilling, even rewarding. But if you think you're invincible, if you buy one just for the looks or the ego boost, they will chew you up and spit you out, fast. So, which of these bikes have you ridden, or maybe crashed? Got another two-wheel death trap we should have included?